Hey everyone, you know Donald and Goofy, right? You know they got weapons, they got staves and shields. Well, they've actually got those in Cage 2 as well as Cage 1. Don't know if you knew that. Little Kingdom Hearts cool detail there. So I figured let's have a look through these and I'll put all the stats and the picture on the screen and it'll be all nice and very pretty and lovely. Ah, that's wonderful. But the voiceover is not going to be very scripted like this is this weapon and this is this and it has this, because that is boring. That is very boring. So I'm just going to look through these live right now and then I'll add it to the video afterwards. To start with, we have Donald's Staves. Obviously, to begin with, there's the Mage's Staff. As far as the stats go, we got Strength and Magic again. I don't think there's anything like recoil, at least not that I can see looking at the details here on the wiki. I assume there's no like recoil stat, just like with the Keyblades in Cage 2, they didn't have that kind of thing. So it's a little simpler than it was in Cage 1, they're mostly just stat sticks really. But to make things a bit more complicated for me, there are 4 different versions of every staff because of the worlds where the weapons change appearance. So you got the normal one, which is obviously just looking like Donald's outfit a little bit, and then a mage's hat, a bit like a Final Fantasy one as well. And then a Timeless River, we've got a black and white grayscale color scheme. Space Paranoids, we've got some blue, computery stuff on there. And then Halloween Town, where everything gets a more realistic texture and goes a little bit duller and a little bit darker. And then after that, there's the Hammer Staff. This is one of the strength-based staves, so it's +2 strength and +1 magic. And then after that, we have the Victory Bell. This one seems like it's just a bit of an increased gem release from a Moogle shop, +3 strength and +2 magic. And it's a bell with wings on it. Very nice. Comet Staff, this is one of the star-themed weapons. And it does remind me a bit of the Morning Star from Cage 1, just a little more extravagant. +2 strength and +2 magic. So it's a simple, balanced upgrade from Donald's original weapon. I kind of like the Timeless River look here. I guess it's just the lines and the edges. Looks quite nice with the stars, very geometric. The Lord's Broom is a broom, like the ones in Disney Castle, the ones that Yen Sid has in Fantasia. Yeah, it's one of those, but it's a staff. The Halloween Town one actually is quite interesting to look at here because they've really made it more realistic with regard to the actual straw textures for the broom. So I do quite like that. I think that's a kind of neat look. And it's quite a fitting weapon to have for Halloween Town, really. You think about scarecrows, they have straw, or of course witches having brooms to ride on. The Wisdom Wand is a bit more of an endgame weapon because you can buy it from a Moogle shop in the world that never was. And it's a staff with, it's kind of got like 2 prongs, which is holding up an open book with a bunch of symbols on it. So it's definitely quite an interesting design. It's one of the more out there ones for any staff that I've seen. Especially just that 2-pronged design. That's what I think is quite interesting. But yeah, you got a book. It's like a spell book to read from. Oh yeah, the Halloween Town one again. Halloween Town, honestly, just has some of the coolest texture designs, I think, in the game. I just really like the, realistic, but very much in the Tim Burton style. It's not just making it like realistic graphics. But putting it into that style, I think, works so well, especially when you have actual sort of natural textures, like with the broom, and then again with the paper. Like, the paper looks really good here. Then we have Meteor Staff, not to be confused with Meteor Strike from Cage 1, because this one, it's a lot simpler looking. I don't really like it as much as Meteor Strike, but to be fair, it's not meant to be like a super end of the game weapon. It is kind of cool though, and it's actually got an ability change, according to the wiki here, from the original to the final mix. In the original it was Lucky Lucky, and then in the final mix it's Thunder Boost, so wow, there you go. And as for the versions of it, I would say, they're fine. I don't really care for them too much. I like the original one as far as this one goes. And then we get Rising Dragon, which you get from the Land of Dragons. Just kidding, no. You get it from the Cerberus Cup because, reasons. I suppose you could see that looking kind of underworldy, with the horns, the wings. I guess fine, it works well enough, but you would think this would maybe be a Land of Dragons one. But as far as the ability, this got changed again. Item boost originally and then fire boost. Yeah, fire boost makes sense for a dragon, so I think that's kind of fair enough. And then the different versions of it. Again, I like the Halloween Town one. I like how it turns the orb green. It's quite a menacing look to it. Now we go on to something a little bit interesting because we have the Shaman's Relic. Obviously you get this from one of the Shamans, the Heartless in the game. And it's a bit interesting because it actually got a final mix redesign, which makes sense because the Shamans themselves got redesigned, including the staff that they hold. Since this is that staff, it too had to be redesigned. So we have the KH2 original ones, including all the color schemes for the different worlds. Quite like the Halloween Town one, but I mean, if I kept saying that for everything, yeah, I like the Halloween Town looks. There we go, blanket statement. But then we have the final mix one, which changes the colors. Because now we have some sort of purpley kind of horns, and we got yellow for like the tusk things. So yeah, actually I had to change these. But also, we have another version of this to look at. The Shaman's Relic Plus. Because you can actually get a plus version of it. Which actually comes from the Necromancers in the Cavern of Remembrance, which is another recolor of the Shaman. Oh my lord, why did they do this? But yeah, here we've got the Shaman's Relic Plus, which is a sort of orangey red, suiting with the Necromancers. Maybe they should have called it like Necromancer's Relic. I don't know, I guess it's the same thing. But and this one has +4 and +5, and the ability is Defender, and that didn't change because this is new to Final Mix. And yeah, then we got all the different versions of that, and oh my goodness, 3 different versions of this staff to show. And we're going to end up with this problem again later on. And then we have another rare drop weapon. This is the Nobody Lance. This is obviously from the Dragoons, which have this very lance. Oh, this is a much shorter one for Donald, of course. And this actually changed from Defender to Item Boost in Final Mix. It's a 1% drop, at least at base level. And it also has some versions, a very simple looking thing, but of course it's a nobody weapon. The Halloween Town one, I assume it's meant to be rust and not blood. But it does kind of look a bit like it's bloodstained, doesn't it? Which is pretty cool. But yeah, if it was blood, it'd be at the tip and not sort of around the middle of it. But yeah, it's a pretty gnarly, pretty metal, pretty savage looking thing, so I quite like that. And then Save the Queen is back from the first game, but it's been redesigned. It's now got a yellow heart and these white wings around it, and then a twisty, curly base that goes down to the actual handle. So it's a bit more grown up looking than what we got in the first game. It's +5, +6, it's got hyper healing, and it's got all the different versions. But notably, we also have a Save the Queen Plus, because we have the ability to synth the plus versions in this game. So the Save the Queen Plus, interesting thing going on here. So it seems like in the original KH2, it had the same colors as the normal Save the Queen. They didn't change it. But in Final Mix, it seems like they actually decided to change the actual color scheme of the plus version to this red and gold version, which I think is a fair choice because it at least means it looks a bit different from just being the same thing but technically plus. And it also changed the ability, so I went from MP Hastiger to MP Rage. I would say kind of a downgrade, I suppose. I mean, Donald probably will get hit a lot, so maybe it's good, but Hastiger just is quite a big recovery speed increase. But I'm no KH2, ability combat expert or anything like that, so I don't know what's technically better. But yep, let's Save the Queen Plus. And then after that we have Centurion. This is a big looking weapon. Doesn't really look like a staff, does it? Well, it's because it's not, it's an axe. Or I guess an axe sword, I think that's what they call Lexus's weapon. Because yes, this is Lexus's weapon, and you can synth it. It's an addition in Final Mix, it's not in the original KH2, because his Absent Silhouette or his Data Fight weren't in the original KH2. But yeah, honestly, it's actually one of my least favourite organization weapons. I like big, brutish weapons, I do enjoy that kind of look. But this one, I guess it's just the colours being all a bit mismatched and weird. Red and black and then yellow and then a blue handle. It's all a little bit too much for me. But when you go into the other versions of it, I think it definitely looks better. I quite like the Space Paranoids one, actually. I just think that one comes together a little better because it's mostly sticking to bluish tones. And there's also the Centurion Plus. And I kind of like it more because it's a much more consistent color scheme, right? It just goes with an orange and black, a little bit of yellow in there as well. A little bit of sort of reddish as well at the top, but it just flows together better. The ability is damage control, so the stats don't change with this plus version. I think this is generally the case for plus versions. The stats are the same, but we get a new ability or a different ability. So it's a +13 strength and +3 magic that goes for both versions of this, but the Centurion Plus has damage control. And then we get to the final selection of weapons, and these are all new in Final Mix because they come from the Mushroom 13 Special Heartless. And there's a bunch of these, so we got the plain mushroom. This is the weakest one, and it's kind of just a bit of trash really to pick up. It's got +0 strength, +1 magic. It says here that the Japanese literal translation is pleasure mushroom. So make of that what you will. And there's also a plus version. It's kind of, I don't know, putting a plus version for something so pathetic kind of seems, I don't know, there's not much point in it, but +0 and +3, so yeah, great. And this actually has a slightly different look, where the mushroom is more black and then it's got yellow as well. The previous one was kind of like a beige color. So yeah, the Plus version I think looks a little bit nicer. And I don't know if there's any real point to these. I don't know why you get them. You get it if you do a certain rank with the mushrooms, right? And if you do better at them, you get more of a chance of getting a better one. I just don't really understand why these weak ones even exist, right? It doesn't even sell for much. It sells for 10 according to this. So it's just like, why does this exist? I don't really know. It's just a thing that's there. And then we also have another tier. The next tier up is the precious mushroom. And this one's +1 and +5, so it's not quite as pathetic. And this one actually in the Plus version changes the handle and the wings coming out of it. But each tier of these looks a little more interesting than the previous, so it gets a bit more complex with each tier. The Plus version actually for this one is not too bad because it has +7 magic and MP Hastera. So at least that's a little bit something, right? It's a fairly decent stat for magic. It's quite a high magic stat. But then we go on to the final one of these, the premium mushroom. This one is the most glorious looking one, and it's actually very powerful in magic. It's got +9 and MP Hysterga, and I suppose that's why they changed the Save the Queen to MP Rage, because they didn't want two Staves to have MP Hysterga. So yeah, this one's actually quite good if you manage to get it. It seems like, yeah, it gives it 10% of the time if they're satisfied at rank A, the mushrooms, and 100% of the time if you get a rank S, although that's not the easiest thing to get. And you actually get the staves from the odd-numbered mushrooms, and the shields will come from the even-numbered ones. Well, that's all the staves. Now we need to go on and look at the shields for Goofy. So starting off we have the Knight Shield again, and it looks very, very similar to what we had in Cage 1, with maybe just a little bit better texturing, obviously. And it's very simple, +1, +0, yep, very basic. After this is the Adamant Shield. Now, there was an Adamant Shield in Cage 1, but it looked quite different. This one is more like a tortoise shell, if anything, so it does fairly suit if you're in the Pride Lands and Goofy is in his tortoise form. But yep, +2, +0. This one again is from Wallace's weapon shop, and you can get some different styles of tortoise shell, I suppose. You want a cyber tortoise? Well, there you go. Go to Space Paranoid. It's wonderful. And we also have Chain Gear. I quite like this one. I'm sure you probably could have guessed that I like this. But yeah, I mean, obviously the chains, they look a bit flat because it's not properly textured because it's an old game. But I still like the idea of having a shield that's got chains going onto a ring in the middle. It's just pretty cool, isn't it? It's a pretty badass thing to have, especially for someone like Goofy. And yeah, and the Halloween Town one looks even better, especially when you're doing a sort of edgy weapon like this. The Halloween Town one is where it especially comes into light. Because if you take a Goofy looking weapon and you make it look serious in Halloween Town, well, yeah, I guess that's the thing. There's only so far you can go with that. But something like this chain gear just looks even better when you actually put it in an art style that fits what it's trying to do. And this one you actually get from Port Royal, so yeah, that's pretty fitting too. After this is Falling Star, matches up a little bit with Comet Staff. A comet and a falling star, they're not the same thing, but a lot of meteorites, shooting stars and all that, they do come from comets that pass us by. I don't know why now I'm doing an astronomy lesson, but yeah, it comes from Mosh's Moogle Shop. Who is that? Which one is that? That's Olympus Coliseum. So there we go, +3 and 0 magic. I'm going to assume that the Cage 2 shields have a similar thing to Cage 1, where the size of them can also determine how good it is at blocking. It doesn't outright say anywhere here that I can see, but otherwise it would literally just be increases to the strength stat, right? So I'm going to guess that is what's going on there. But we have here the Dream Cloud, which is an interesting looking thing. The translated name is Cumulonimbus Cloud, and Cumulonimbus is a type of cloud in real life. Hey, let's give a meteorology lesson now, and I don't mean meteors, I mean weather. Cumulonimbus is like the big storm cloud. If you look at it from far away, a lot of the time it has an incus, which is an anvil shape, at the top as it reaches the transition between two parts of the atmosphere. So this is the big one. If you're underneath, you're just going to get storms, you're going to get lightning, you're going to get inclement weather. But yeah, Dream Cloud sounds a little bit less severe than that. It's a bit more sort of fluffy, lovely heaven dream cloud. But yeah, it looks alright. It's not bad looking thing. It's kind of like maybe lightning-y, you could say, which would make sense with the Cumulonimbus. But Dream Cloud sure works fine enough for a name. And then we have the Knight Defender. Very interesting shield because it looks like a knight's helmet with two swords crossed behind it. You know, if you looked at that in isolation, you wouldn't think that's a shield, would you? You'd think that's maybe like a crest something to put on the wall, but no, it's a shield. And what I really want to point out with this one, I mean, it's +7 strength, so yeah, it's quite strong, and that makes sense because you get it all the way from the world that never was. But what I want to point out is the Halloween Town one, because look at the eye sockets. I mean, they're not sockets, but look at the eye holes. The eye holes, damn it. They've got blood coming out of them. I mean, maybe again it's rust. Yeah, maybe that is rust, but come on, it looks like it's bleeding from the eyes. That's the coolest fucking thing in the game. And then after that, we have the Ogre Shield. This one actually has an ability, Defender. And this one you get from Land of Dragons. And I guess it's supposed to be some kind of ogre. Or at least that's their interpretation of an ogre with X eyes. Maybe it's dead. Maybe they actually like skinned an ogre's face and put onto the shield. But no, it's just called Ogre Shield. And yeah, it's pretty normal. And then after that, there's the Genji Shield actually returns from KH1, but it looks different now. So it's a bit more of a elegant design. The Genji Shield in KH1, it looked a lot like one of the Genji Shields from a Final Fantasy game. This one's got a bit more of its own design. Instead of being a rectangular shape, it's actually more of a hexagon, and it has these two little curly bits on the sides. It just looks a little bit nicer than the KH1 version. You get this from the Titan Cup, and it used to have Lucky Lucky, and now it has Hyper Healing. So now we're getting into the more special weapons, and we have the return of a problem, because this is the Akashic Record, which is dropped by the Bookmaster Heartless, and the Bookmasters were not so fortunate as to escape the recolor of Final Mix, which means this too has to have a recolor. It's gone from having fairly normal looking pages and a brown border with a purple center and the Heartless emblem, to instead looking a little bit more funky and having a purple border, silver pages, and grey on the front. Yeah, I kind of prefer the original look. But then we have to deal with the Plus version as well, which keeps the same stats of +7 strength and 0 magic, but the ability is changed to MP Hastera, and this one's from the Rune Master, which is the Cavern of Remembrance special version of the Bookmaster, and so it matches what they have, which, well, they know what they're doing because it's quite a nice red and black, and you know how I feel about red and black. It is also quite suitable because the Heartless emblem on the front is red and black, obviously that doesn't change. So this, if anything, this is like Ansem's book, right? Because it's red and black, and it has sort of a yellow lining, just like how Ansem has, you know, yellow on his jacket. Oh, I also like the Halloween Town one. Something very cool about this is they've added this weird twisty checkerboard pattern. It's completely unnecessary, like they didn't have to add that. And in the Space Paranoid one, there's circuitry stuff, right? There's a circuit board. But yeah, they could have just made it textured differently, but no, they actually added this extra pattern in, which I think is just a pretty cool detail to have. And then we have a drop from the Nobodies. This is the Nobody Guard. You get this from the Gamblers, but it doesn't really look anything like what the Gamblers have, unlike the Nobody Lance. It's just a Nobody themed shield. I guess you could kind of say it's like Axel's Chakrams, but you know, that's not exactly like that. And you think they'd drop it from the Assassins if that's the case, but no, it's from the Gamblers. And yeah, it looks alright. I think I prefer the Lance. This one, I don't know. I'm not like a big fan of it or anything. Actually, I like KH3's one more, but that's not for this video to go into. You got the different versions of it. Yep, they're all good as well. And the ability changed from Hyper Healing to MP Rage. Save the King is also returned, and if I'm being honest, I don't really like the way it looks. I think this weapon didn't really look good until KH3. KH1 is just quite flat and kind of cheap looking. KH2's is a bit over complex. I don't really like it. It's just a weird design. Yeah, KH3's looks quite nice. But again, not the point of this video. Let's Save the King. We have the same weirdness that we had last time, where we have the Plus version that looks the same until Final Mix where it actually changes. I assume this actually was the case and this isn't just weird information on the wiki. So, you know, if that's wrong then whatever, but I'm just kind of showing what the Final Mix Plus version looks like with the red color scheme instead. Which, yep, I do like, but it doesn't really do much to make me like the design that much more, right? But yeah, the Save the King, originally on the first version, the non-plus version, it has item boost, and that doesn't change actually. And then on the Plus version, it had MP Rage. That changed into damage control instead. And then we have Goofy's organization member weapon. This one is quite obviously Vexen's shield. He's the only one with a shield. And it looks really nice. I always like Frozen Pride. I think it's one of the coolest looking shields in the Kingdom Hearts series. And it's quite nice as far as organization weapons go. So yeah, I really like the way this looks. It says on the description, a shield with the greatest defense, So while I can't see some kind of defense stat, I'm assuming there is one hidden in there. Or maybe it is to do with the size like I mentioned, and this one's quite big. So yeah, maybe this one is a very, very defensive shield. Vexen certainly does like tank behind it, doesn't he? But yeah, it's only got +5 strength, so I assume that makes up for it. Naturally, the Space Paranoids variant looks quite good because it's originally a blue shield anyway. So that looks really cool for a data shield. And then the Halloween Town one's got an interesting texture actually on the middle. We can also look at the Plus version, which is the same stats, but it has an ability, MP Hasterga, and it's red and black, and I guess blue as well. It's kind of like a darker blue, a very dark, I don't know what kind of blue that is. I'm not a color theorist or color expert. Who knows? It's very dark blue anyway, and it's got black and red, which I really do like. I like both versions of this, you know, I think this is one of the coolest looking shields in any of the games. And then finally we have to look at the mushrooms. We've got the pointless trash mushroom here, the joyous mushroom, or happy mushroom. Yeah, it's called a flimsy shield, it really is. It might as well be a piece of paper using to protect against the enemies. Not really a whole lot of point to this one. The plus version looks a little better. The stats are, you know, a tiny bit better. It's +3 strength instead, but it's still pretty pointless. And then the majestic mushroom looks a little more special. And this one's got +5 and +0. It's got an ability Protect, which actually just absorbs damage. It just literally absorbs 10% of damage. And the plus version has Protectra. I'm not sure, is it Protectra? That sounds really weird, doesn't it? Wouldn't it be like Protera? Like, you know, in KH1, like a Protera chain and stuff. That's really weird. Anyway, you know, it's got it's got +7. I'm losing my bloody train of thought. It's got +7. Professional video. +7 strength, and it has 0 magic, and it has, let's call it Protera. And then the best one is, of course, the ultimate mushroom. This one's got 3 of the little mushroom guys on it, and it's got a 13. We saw that on the staff as well. And yeah, it's got Protega or Protectka. But yeah, it's got +9 strength, absorbs 40% of damage. So these shields are just really good for giving something where Goofy is going to survive a lot more hits. Or at least he's going to be able to tank more damage, right? So yeah, and you get these from the even number mushrooms. If you get a rank S, you'll be able to get this one assured, but you know, getting a rank S on the mushrooms, like I said, not the most fun pastime ever. And we've got to do what I did for the first video for KH1, we've got to look at the other party member weapons as well. These ones are very simple, there's not a bunch of different versions or anything like that. So first up is a sword, it's Auron sword, it's called Battlefields of War. It's pretty simple, it's got a nice little gold design down near the handle, and it looks good, it looks like it's pretty effective. Translation is War Touchy, so I suppose that's the kind of sword that actually is. +3 strength and +0 magic. I assume the stats are going to be pretty basic like that for all of these. Then we also have Jack, and he has no weapon. In KH1 I would have just said no weapon, but in this it actually gives a little more detail and has a picture as well. So now it's Bone Fist. Yes, and it even says Jack Skellington's scariest weapon, his hands. Does he strangle you or something? And in a similar nature to KH1 we have the claws for Beast, although it's called Beast's Claw, and it actually has a picture now. Same stats again, +3, 0 magic. I think we're going to see that for pretty much everything. Tron of course has his identity disc, which he throws and it zips around the place. And the description says attacks enemies from afar. It's basically just a frisbee, a special data frisbee. Then we have Simba's, which is Proud Fang, which makes sense, he probably would use his fangs, except for the fact the picture is quite clearly one of his paws, and the original Japanese name is Proud Claw, so a bit of a weird translation here. I mean, I guess I've never seen him bite anything, but I haven't really looked at his animations that closely, but yeah, he mostly would use his claws. So just a case of a strange translation. Maybe they're just trying to separate it a bit from Beast having claws as well. I don't know. Aladdin's sword from KH1 now gets its own actual name. At least the sword gets named, now it's a scimitar. It's still got +3, +0. The description says, a sword light as a feather for quick attacks. And then we have a little pun name, because this one is Skill and Crossbones. Get it? Skill and Crossbones? Isn't that fun? But yeah, it's Jack Sparrow's sword. The original translation seems to be Pirate Sword, so it's more in line with some of the other weapons. But the English version, they just had to go and make a little pun. I guess that does give it a bit more character. Oh, almost there. I'm going to lose my mind. Alright, so Sword of the Ancestor. This is Mulan's sword. Apparently it's the sword of her father in the movie. Going to let you in on a little secret here. I haven't actually watched the movie. But yep, it's quite a nice looking sword actually. I do like how the handle looks. And there's even a sheathed version when she's not actually using it. So that's a little bit different. And yeah, it's the same stats. And then finally we have the Way to the Dawn. Riku's weapon. This one is a bit more of a well-known weapon. Obviously I may have talked about this in the Keyblades video. I probably talked about design or looked at it, but here we are again. Riku is a party member, so I suppose it deserves to be here. Still +3 and +0, and I've already mentioned Way to Dawn before. You know, the bits that I like are the Soul Eater bits. I'd rather just have the Soul Eater, which, yeah, that's a sword, it's not really a Keyblade, but the wing sticking off the end of it, I'm not really a huge fan of that. I don't mind the guard having one sort of bat wing and one angel wing. You know, it's kind of like a fusion of Oathkeeper and Oblivion, obviously representing light and dark within Riku. I just don't like the angel wing weirdly stuck on the top. I've never really liked it. But otherwise, it looks okay. And there we go. That's all the party member weapons in Kingdom Hearts 2, including Final Mix as well. Thank you very much for watching. These things are always... I don't know, I kind of don't mind looking at them. I'm kind of interested sometimes in all the little details, and especially like the Halloween Town versions that you see, that kind of thing. Like, I do think there's some interesting stuff in there. But obviously a video like this, I'm not pretending it's the most exciting thing in the world, right? We're looking at fucking PNGs of weapons here. But hey, some people seem to like this kind of stuff. So I might do one for Cage 3 and cap it off with that as far as party member ones go. So yeah, you know, fucking like and subscribe, I don't care. Anyway, Twitch, you can follow me there, that's pretty cool. Thanks for watching, see ya.
Say that again!